TPN, the Sovereign Americans News Network.
I really want to learn some things tonight. We only have about 10 minutes. You can teach me.
So I was flipping through the mainstream media newscasts just to keep abreast of what misleading info they are spreading this day when I came across Chris Mathews saying this.
You want to take it literally, the Constitution?
Yeah, they read the
bill.
if
you want to go back to it, we got to do a lot of erasing and history, Tony, if you start going back to a fundamentalist approach to the Constitution. You want to take it literally, the Constitution?
Yeah.
I thought to myself, yes, I do want to take the Constitution literally. I mean, they wrote it down for a reason, didn't they? For many years now, Chris Mathews has been moving further and further to the socialist extreme left that everyone keeps talking about. He even says as much in this clip.
The trouble with your crowd is, if you take a strong big government view, if you think we ought to have a little more socialism like health care, which is a point of view.
Next, he explains the genesis of his thought pattern.
I had all these fights in high school. The federal government has a big role to play. I think we settled all this stuff.
Next, let's play some hardball with the Hardhead.
It's the part of doing hardball that I like most. When people say something I thought they might say, and then they deliver. Everybody likes benefits that. To it, but everybody believes in the Constitution. Let me ask you this: you're not a birther, you're not a truther.
They don't either.
Yeah. Although, who doesn't believe in the Constitution? If the original document of the Constitution was so perfect, why do we need 10 amendments right up front, Colin? Why do we need a second amendment for the gun guys right up front if it was a perfect document?
Notice how he says, if it was a perfect document? Next, listen as he blames a non-existent party at the time for the Bill of Rights, as if they were a bad thing.
We started amending pretty early, didn't we?
Actually, we started the amendments, Chris, if you will, before the actual document.
Well, to get them approved because the Republican Party insisted on the amendments.
No.
Approved because the Republican Party insisted on the amendments.
No.
Here's an example of how ignorant of the Constitution he is, or a perfect example of his disdain for it.
The throwback down in South Carolina, Republican State Representative Mike Pitts has introduced a bill that would ban federal currency, the money we use now, and replace it with gold and silver coins. So let's get rid of checks and credit cards and paper money, as he'd like us to, and all ride around in buckboards carrying our money in satchels. Let's all get back to the 19th century. These guys are unbelievable. What happens when a person, man or woman, Republican, Democrat, or Independent, gets elected to the U.S. Senate? What happens to them? Why are they all the bad guys? What happens to them? As you see it, when do they become the evil federal government? When's that happen? Right after their election, or when they get sworn in?
When they stay too long.
Second Amendment. Should the government have any gun control?
No, absolutely not.
None.
No,
do you think if you drove a tank down the street or carried a bazooka, would the federal government have a right to take it out of your hands?
You can't keep and bear that.
Flirting with disaster. Freshman Congressman Jason Chaffetz, he's the Republican from Utah, was confronted by conspiracy theorists at a town hall this week. Catch how he goes along with the bearded fellow who's pushing the truther line that 9/11 was an inside job by the U.S. government in Washington.
Have you given any thought to the possibility that it was a false flag terror attack on 9/11?
Well, I know that there's still a lot to learn about what happened and what didn't happen, and we should be vigilant and continuing to investigate that. Absolutely.
Appreciate that.
Well, I suppose Mr. Chaffetz got the word from a friendly source later on that he'd gotten himself boarded up on the Cloud Cuckoo Express by that line, because last night he put out word that he is in fact not sympathetic to such conspiracy theories about September 11th, that he's not, in the parlance of today, a truther.
Needing this statement in the, quote, age of Obama, that something has happened
There's
since we
nothing in
elected
the
our
statement
first
that talks
African
about the
American.
age of Obama.
It's coming in this context, and we've suddenly got this movement for liberty and to restore values when we got our first African American president. And I'm not calling you racist at all, Colin. I don't mean to say that, but there is a looking backwards that sometimes can carry racial connotations. The Tea Party movement is not exclusive. It's not mainly a movement of young people, and it is most definitely a movement of white people. And so I feel like a lot of these documents and a lot of these gatherings are rather hostile to the America that we are becoming, which is multiracial, which is younger, in which women have the right not merely to vote, but to be president, and it's turning back the clock.
with...
Okay, because I think a lot of states' rights that I'm watching on television would like to go back to pre-64, where states like Alabama and Mississippi decide how they want to run their states. And I keep hearing what Joan hears, and I hear the racial tinge to it.
I've talked to thousands of Tea Party goers and leaders, and I have never, ever heard anything like that.
It's implicit. States' rights. Anyway,
I think you see what...
And there you have it. Chris Mathews, Constitution hater.
If the original document of the Constitution was so perfect, why do we need 10 amendments right up front, Colin?
TPN, the Sovereign Americans News Network.